all of us.
Let's go!
After about a month and a half of its release, I finally saw Paw Patrol the Mighty movie. I reviewed the first one when it came out about 2 years ago, and I surprisingly enjoyed it. I assumed it was just going to be some average kids movie that isn't horrendous and isn't painful to watch, but I didn't think it was going to be anything special. And it ended up being one of the biggest surprises of 2021 for me, because I really enjoyed it and even made the honorable mentions. And had I done a top 15 that year like I did last year, it probably would have made the list pretty easily. So now we have this one, and I was a little concerned about this one because I did want this to be good. I did want to like this movie, but the trailer didn't look that great. It didn't look bad by any means, but once again, it kind of made it look like just some generic kids movie that's not exactly anything worth of note. But much like last year with the Hyperions, this one ends up being the surprise superhero movie that's better than all of DC's bullshit. How did that happen? Well, incompetence on Warner Brothers' part. So now we have this movie, and like I said, it's pretty good. I don't think it's as good as the first movie, but that is a pretty high bar to clear, because again, I legitimately really enjoyed the first movie, and I enjoyed this one quite a bit too. Like I said, it's not as good as the first one, and there are a few problems that I do have, and a lot of it has to do with certain decisions made by characters. But we'll get back to that. One of the things I want to talk about is, of course, that the dogs get superpowers in this one, because everybody has to get superpowers nowadays in movie franchises like this. They have to get superpowers at some point, apparently. But I wasn't opposed to this idea, and I did like the action sequences that they had with these. Well, it was really only one action sequence at the end, and I'll get more into that later. But I do like how they incorporate the powers, kind of. My problem is that they still use their vehicles, and they're able to, supercharge their vehicles with their powers, and for most of them, that's fine, because a lot of them, one of them is, a super magnet now. He can lift, it's essentially Magneto. One of them, Rubble, can turn into basically a human wrecking ball, kind of like Cannonball, if you want, from the X-Men, if you want a actual superhero comparison. And then, I don't remember what Zuma's is. What was Zuma's? He can create water and turn into water. Not quite like Percy Jackson, where he controls water. He can literally shoot water out of his hands, create water, and can even turn himself into water. So that's a decent idea, where it's not just controlling stuff. Oh, and then Marshall is obviously pyro. He can create and control fire. My problem is with these two, Skye and Chase, because Skye gets flight powers because she flies a plane, but that completely negates the purpose of the plane. Also, she also gets super strength. I don't know why she gets 2 powers and everybody else gets 1. And Chase gets super speed. So what's the point of the car then, if he can run faster than the car? That kind of bothered me throughout the movie, but it's not that big a deal because, again, you gotta have the merchandise and everything. And I do like the suits they come up with. Like the first movie, when they got upgraded suits, and I really did like how they did that in the first one, even though it was clearly just for merchandise and everything. Even the movie acknowledged it. And they do kind of bring that joke back in this movie with the merchandise, where they actually have Paw Patrol merchandise in-universe, and that's pretty funny. And after they get their superpowers, they have an entirely new line of merch, and that's a pretty clever meta joke, because the same thing happens in real life. When they get new suits and everything, or superpowers and everything, there's a shitload of new merchandise that comes out to reflect it. So that was a pretty clever meta joke. My biggest problem with this movie is the villain. The villain is not exactly stuff. I had the same problem with Humdinger in the first one, where my problem with that one was that all of his actions, he wasn't exactly much of a villain, because everything that went wrong was just due to him being stupid. It was the stupid, loop-de-loop subway or whatever it was, and that went off the rails, literally. So that was just, that wasn't even, evil, that was just stupidity. Or like the weather machine that he had, that wasn't evil, it was just a bad idea made from his own stupidity that ended up causing a bunch of issues. Or the fireworks, where he shot them all off at the same time, that was just stupidity. So he wasn't much of a threat, per se. Here, he teams up with this new villain. I can't remember her name for the life of me. It was like Veronica Vance or something like that. Where she wanted to pull the meteor down, and she did, pulled it towards Earth, because I don't know if she knew exactly what was going to be in the meteor, but she knew there was going to be something in there. It ended up being the crystals that give superpowers. And her big plan by the end of the movie is essentially pulling the entire asteroid belt towards Earth. Now, this is another stupid decision. Now, this is more in line with evil, because she's assuming that all those asteroids have more crystals in them so she can absorb more superpowers. And the one thing I will say about these crystals is that they only give you one. They're supposed to only give you like a superpower that reflects. That like reflects you. Like Humdinger actually grows bigger because because I'm assuming it's because he sees himself as above everybody else. So that was pretty clever. But Vance got like flight and electricity power. So again, I don't know why she got two. But why is this the one she got? It's never really explained. And this movie, much like the first movie focused heavily on Chase, this one focuses heavily on Skye. And honestly, I didn't find the story very interesting, because it was a big thing about her being upset about being the smallest pup. Like, I don't know why I have to care. Oh, and Liberty, the new dog they brought in the first movie, is back, and she's still not interesting. I don't know why they brought this character in the first movie, because she's not interesting. She has no place in the story. Hell, she doesn't even get a superpower until the tail end of the movie. Tail end. Where she's able to stretch out, and I knew that was going to happen because they made a comment earlier on when she was trying to figure out what her superpower was about her being more flexible or something like that. So as soon as it said, I'm like, okay, that's gonna be her superpower by the end of the movie. She's gonna be able to stretch like Mr. Fantastic or Elastigirl or something, and that's exactly what happened. They also have the junior patrollers in this, which are like a couple of tiny puppies that are like the size of my hand, that they're, like, training to be part of the Paw Patrol. And they're kind of pointless. Like, they're giving I guess they're just there to give Liberty something to do, so she babysits them while they go off and while the rest of the Paw Patrol does interesting stuff. But they do actually play a role in helping them literally bring down Humdinger at the end of the movie. So, I like how it was done. I just wish they had probably written it out. Because there's not a lot of padding to this movie. It's about an hour 25, much like the first movie. Maybe it's like an hour 28 or something. It's not even an hour and a half. But it still feels like there's a couple things like the junior patrollers you could have cut. Oh, also something that I really didn't like about the first movie was that it had a cameo by Kim Kardashian as some poodle. Yeah, they brought her back in this for a few lines. For absolutely no good goddamn reason at all. They could have cut that out and not missed a thing. But for some reason, the Paw Patrol movies need fucking Kim Kardashian in them. Ew. So, I want to get into the final battle here. Oh, also something I do, actually, before I want to get into the final battle, something that surprised me. One, the animation is pretty good. I forgot to mention that, too. It's on par with the first movie, and it has a budget of $20 million. Take notes, Disney. You do not need $200 million to make an animated movie look good. You can do it for a tenth of the cost. And by the way, this movie made bank. It made, I want to say $60 million domestically, which is triple its production budget, and it made about $122 million worldwide, or it was something akin to that. So this movie already made a bigger profit than pretty much any Disney movie this year outside of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and maybe Ant-Man the Wasp. But something that really surprised me was the musical score. The score for this movie set the tone for the opening credits for the score was really good for some reason. It had a few songs in here, like actual songs with lyrics. The one during their little montage when they first get their superpowers and played during the end credits is okay. I didn't particularly care for the Christina Aguilera song that played during Skye's flashback. And don't get me wrong, I don't hate Christina Aguilera's music. Hell, her song Loyal, Brave, and True was the only good thing in that fucking Mulan reboot from 2020. But I still don't love her music, and this song wasn't very good. There was also another song in there. I don't remember the name of it, but you know exactly what song it is if you've seen the movie. Like, when they're being chased by Humdinger, I feel like they should have gone with something else. It didn't match. But I thought the musical score was pretty good. Now, the final battle for this movie, and one thing I will say is that one problem I have is that the entire reason the villain gets all the crystals is because Skye ends up being a selfish asshole by, instead of alerting everybody else that she found her crystal, she decides to take everybody else's crystals and try to go get it herself, which obviously backfires. And and they try to build up a connection between Skye and the villain, but even the villain doesn't even give a shit that they're both like, oh, we were both seen as small and insignificant and everything. It's like, I don't care, and clearly the movie doesn't either, because the villain just basically told her to shove it. So at least there was a little bit of self-awareness there. The final battle for this movie was actually pretty good. We got to see Chase use some of his super speed, the obvious slow motion effect that every speedster uses in movies and TV shows nowadays. And there was a little clip of that in the trailer that I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And it is pretty badass seeing him use the way he uses the super speed and how we seeing him dodge lightning and everything at super speed. It was honestly pretty badass. And how they all they're all using one crystal, so they're tossing it from one dog to the next, and they're all utilizing their different powers effectively. It was really cool to see, actually. It was a really well done final battle. I don't particularly care for the fact that they still had to blow up a bunch of meteors, and especially since writers said there's hundreds of meteors coming down, Skye takes out maybe 50, and then that's all of them. So, continuity, what's that? But yeah, I had a surprisingly good time with this movie. If you have kids, they'll love it. I don't know how many adults will actually like this movie. You probably won't hate the movie even if you don't like it, but I'd still recommend giving it a watch, especially if you have kids. I'm gonna give Paw Patrol: The Mighty Movie a B. It was well done. I'm actually looking forward to the third movie that comes out in 3 years, I think. I think it's scheduled for 2026, so we'll see what happens there. Wonder if they'll keep their superpowers for that one. But yeah, that's all I got, and I will see you all next time. Bye.